During our last visit, we were here in the entrance garden, and I think today we'll probably go across the path and come over here. We already talked about the thyme underlay or ground cover in the front garden, and then we get over here to the herb garden. Although this is not an herb, I wanted to point it out. It's a potato vine, Solanum jasminoides, and it's a wonderful, vigorous, returning vine. And sometimes it climbs into the attic. And in this instance, it has also climbed through the birdhouse, which doesn't seem to deter the Carolina wren, but it is a wonderful thing, and it leads us right into the herb garden. The herb garden, of course, starts with a great big bush of rosemary, which we eat from all of the time. In the middle, there's a big bay laurel, which is fighting for dominance with the crepe myrtle. Bay laurel, of course, gives you bay leaves for your dinner. Underneath, there's a gray-green germander. No idea what people do with germander. It must be a medicinal herb. I grow it because the foliage is wonderful and because it has these lovely purple flowers in the spring. It's also a sure winner at the state fair. People like the foliage. The color is very unusual. I think that I have read that germander is also used in knot gardens, but mine gets quite a lot too large for that. The oregano has taken over most of the garden as a ground cover. And oh, I guess you noticed there's big prickly pear cactus. It's a perfect place for it, the south side of the house against a brick wall, but obviously not apropos to the herb garden particularly, but it's very happy there and spreading. This little baby down here is basil for the summer. It's on its way. The lavender decided it didn't want to be in the herb garden. It wanted to be in the driveway. So the lavender stretched itself way over here to the concrete. There's a quince in the corner, which of course is not an herb, but that's our herb garden. Across the driveway is a wall bed. We put in a retaining wall for this hill quite a few years ago and have since planted it with a variety of things. At the beginning, there's a cotoneaster that was a gift to me from Henning at the Chattahoochee Nature Center. I've forgotten its specific name, but it is something that is supposedly rare, and I'm very happy to have it. It is spreading there still. It's another little herb, little variegated herb that we're hoping will take off this year. Of course, a lot of things sneak in here. There's a daylily, and there's a peony on its way. Parsley is here in the bed. We think this is a weed, but we let this grow every year because it has these really nice, cheerful yellow flowers, and then we pluck it. It has these nice flowers. We're pleased that this evergreen has stayed pretty small. It's Chamaecyparis piscifera, but it is obviously a dwarf variety. One of the first things that went into this garden were these loropetalums. This is a dwarf variety from the Southern Living collection. I believe it was called Pixie. There are 3 of them in the border. 2 of them have grown in this lovely way that they hang over the fence. One of them wants to be upright. It's a little creeping Jenny. Some more herbs. There will be Swiss chard in this bed, which is so lovely and decorative, but also makes good side dish. Blue Angelonia will fill in some of these gaps. And here is the loropetalum that likes to be big. This is a weeping rosemary, and this rosemary is very happy to drape over the wall. Another Chamaecyparis, which is getting a little bit large for this border, but we keep it trimmed back. Many of these things you recognize by yourself. Sedum, parsley. I can zip out here and pluck a few things for dinner. These lilies come back all by themselves and seed in, oddly enough, and have multiplied in the border. I regret that there's an empty space on the second level of this wall. We lost a very large Stachyurus over the winter, and we'll have to replace it. It apparently was a very difficult year for the paper bush as well. Sedgeworthia is living, but it's not as happy as it was. We're hoping it will come back into its full glory. And here is a little purple variegated sage. And then, of course, we always have pots. Everyone has pots. This deutzia on the top of the fence, on the top of the wall, it's all white. It's Chardonnay pearl, and it was absolutely covered with white flowers just a few days ago before the rain. Now we have this lovely chartreuse foliage. There are 3 plants there, and I'm sure that they're planted much too closely together. And they're backed by a Baptisia which planted itself. I have no idea who planted it, the chippies, or perhaps I threw a seed up there once. But it is also coming in very well and chose its own place to be. I'll have to back up a little bit to show you the top level. There are a few conifers on the top level of the border. And then there's this chartreuse Elysium, which picks up the color that I try and carry down through the border. And it is fronted by this beautiful Baptisia, which I believe is Carolina Moonlight. And here's the Baptisia, which is obviously the parent of the one that moved up to the hill. Underneath there are a lot of little white erigerons, which will be totally eaten up by the chrysanthemums and the Baptisia. And this year the big sage has never been so beautiful and is having a lot of purple flowers. So I'm very pleased about the sage. So we pop out here before dinner and choose sage and parsley and rosemary for dinner. And then the Swiss chard will come in so we can also have our vegetable out of this border. Up on top there's a giant sharp plant, which we're not going to be happy about, but a small mahonia as well, 3 soft caress, and a really beautiful hellebore. So I think that's it for today.